Love to Hate, the podcast that asks the question, what do you love to hate?
You are a smelly pirate hooker.
Movies, television, music, books, nerd things, current events.
And I hate your ass face!
Do you love it?
No! No! Hell no! No!
Do you hate it?
Yes!
You stupid, ignorant son of a bitch, dumb bastard!
I fart in your general direction!
No more foreplay.
Love to Hate starts now. I am Brandon Luna.
And I'm Philip Holman.
And this is Love to Hate.
Yes.
And today we're talking about
second
something...
episode.
Yeah.
And they said it wouldn't last.
I know, right? And we're talking about something that's pretty near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah, this one's going to be an easy one for us.
Yeah. Comic book movies.
Yeah. That stems from a place near and dear.
Yeah. So let's talk about the latest one.
Deadpool or Batman
v
Superman?
Superman.
Yeah, you and I have had this discussion.
I feel like this is beating a dead horse, but this is us beating a dead horse.
That's complete. We're going to bring something completely
Yeah.
new to this. That you know. Well, and I think too, it's coming from the standpoint of two guys who enjoy these characters and enjoy movies and superhero movies.
Let's get into the history of it a little bit. So, superhero movies have been made for longer than I think this generation knows.
Right.
We've been doing this for quite a while now. First one, you remember?
The first one where I remember it was on the big screen. Well, I don't know. I've got two. Superman.
Yeah.
That was it. You'll believe a man can fly. Seeing that as a kid, waiting in line to get in. But I think the one that really kicked off the current craze, Tim Burton's Batman.
Yep.
And then Joel Schumacher damn near killed it.
Yeah, he did.
And then people credit Blade, the original or the first Blade, with bringing it back
and kind of modernizing it and making it great.
Yeah, and then you had the X-Men series from Bryan Singer that was kind of like, oh wow, so it doesn't have to be just complete cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Superman the first one, but not his first media appearance. But Batman was kind of the first where it's like, hey, we can do this for grown-ups too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a real love-hate relationship with the superhero movies because I am a comic book nerd and I love these stories, and I've followed a lot of these stories, not recently, but in my childhood. And a lot of these movies, it seems like they're made by people who don't necessarily respect the source material.
Right.
And I think we're getting a little better about that now, definitely since the Marvel days. With Disney, Marvel, and everything else that's happening.
I think Marvel has guys in play because they have their own studio. So if nothing else, it's guys who love the source material and revere it, or at least somebody who's saying we got to protect the brand.
Yeah,
and I don't think DC has that.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
DC's completely lost.
Mm-hmm. I think DC's doing a lot better with television than they are with their movies.
That and their animation.
Yeah, their animation's top notch. Actually, if
it
you
is.
Could just get those to the theater, I think you'd be a lot better off.
I think you've got Bruce Timm to thank for that. His take on Batman after the Tim Burton movie in '89. And I remember in an article they told him he had a different vision of it, and they said, go watch the original Fleischer cartoons of Superman. Very noir, and they're like, these things hold up into the 2000s the way they were done. And he kind of took that, and it showed you, okay, here's how an animated series can be. Mm-hmm. And DC's definitely following.
Was awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Awesome.
To this day, fantastic.
Yep.
And Marvel struggles with its animation.
Yep.
They don't put out as good a show as DC does, which again, odd.
It is very odd.
I don't know if it's a matter of this is where we're going to focus our finances, our resources, or what it is.
It makes you wonder why, because I think Marvel has the right guys in charge of the films, and DC has the right guys in charge of the animation. You would think that DC would know to take those guys, put them in charge of the movies, maybe, instead of these guys that are doing it now, because
DC's got Time Warner as a parent.
Yeah.
So you would think, and maybe that works against them because you've got this huge movie studio saying, okay, yeah, that's great, but how do we expand it? How do we make it more popular? And Marvel, really, if you look at their movies, they're made for fans.
Yeah.
They aren't like, hey, we're going to bring in new people, but it's I think there's a matter of, hey, the product's good enough that people who don't even know what this is are going to come see it, and they'll feel like they can pick up on it, whereas DC's like, okay, we don't want to make it just for nerds.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think in that sense they failed.
Yeah, big time. I think Marvel knows enough about fan service to make it for the fans, but at the same time make it accessible to anybody that wants to enjoy a good action movie with some levity.
I mean, you get a plot and then you throw in a story, and all of a sudden the explosions make sense, as opposed to, hey, we're just going to take a plot and then throw in some explosions and what story? We don't need a story.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the way a lot of the DC stuff. Well, with the exception of Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. Definitely had a story there. But I think what DC's unfortunately done is they're trying to take that dark seriousness and apply it to all their characters. It's like, man, that's not Superman.
No, it's not. No,
it's definitely not. It's not true to the character. You can mature the character. It doesn't have to be cheesy like in the 70s.
Yeah.
With the nudge and the wink. But you can still have him portrayed as the character he was meant to be.
Let's talk about your favorite DC movie, The Green Lantern.
First of all, pardon me, I wanted to make sure I enunciate it. I hate Ryan Reynolds. I am not a Ryan Reynolds fan. He did a movie called Nine. I don't remember who directed it. It was a small independent film, and I remember watching it going, I like this. But it's like Punch Drunk Love. You're like, what's your favorite Adam Sandler film? Punch Drunk Love. That sucked. It's like,
right.
Yeah, but I liked it. Nobody's even heard of Nine. Very few people. And if they were to watch it, be like, what do you mean the guy wakes up without a belly button and thinks he's God? I'm like, I'm kind of there.
Yeah.
And he wasn't playing Ryan Reynolds. But everything else, he's just the same guy. Deadpool fit him to a T. I mean, that's basically him. And then so when he did Green Lantern, he was just that character as Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And if you look at Chris Evans, who's Captain America, he's always kind of been that smarmy, snarky type of guy.
Yeah.
But when it came to playing Steve Rogers, he checked that part at the window and played the character as it's been portrayed for years.
Yeah.
He makes a great Captain America.
He does.
Ryan Reynolds didn't do that.
And Chris Evans works in other movies where he's not Chris Evans. If you ever saw Snowpiercer,
yes,
great movie. He's not Chris Evans-ish in that. It's just a role that he's playing.
And so Reynolds was my biggest issue with Green Lantern. But I mean, it was just they were all over the place. They didn't know what they were doing. The costume, at some point, just quit with the CGI.
Yeah,
you don't have to do it.
And we've seen that work this year with Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Yes,
CGI.
Thank you, J.J. Abrams.
Yeah. CGI has its place. It's a tool that you use to enhance your movie, not make your movie. And that's what we lost with Lucas and the prequels, and JJ brought it back to reality with The Force Awakens.
Because then it makes it relatable.
Exactly. You can tell there's a ship behind them. They're standing there in an actual field. It looks like it's something instead of...
And that was one of my biggest things about Batman Superman. That first promo shot they did with the three of them standing there looking tough. And you said to me, you're like, you can tell that's fake. And then they released a photo, and it's the three of them standing there, and it's all green screen. And it's like, you know what? That would have looked much better if you'd have put them in actual rubble.
Yeah. How hard is it?
Yeah. You could have just
just
put
go
them
to
there.
Detroit. Just there.
You filmed in Detroit anyway.
Exactly. What the hell?
Yeah. Is that Eminem? It would have looked so much better, and they just DC just released a clip today because I guess they're really hoping people go buy that 3-hour R-rated DVD or Blu-ray, and it's the scene where Wonder Woman shows up. But as you look at it with the explosion and everything, it's like I can't even tell what's going on. I can't tell Eye Blaster coming from Doomsday because all I see is lights and just it's like wait, I've even lost sense of where I'm at in the film. It's kind of like the way action scenes are shot now.
Yeah.
Like in the Bourne Identity or the Daredevil the original Daredevil movie with Affleck. Mm-hmm. It's so choppy. It's like wait, I don't know who's hitting who.
Yeah.
I just see stuff moving, but I don't know what's actually happening, and then it kind of takes you out of the film.
Yep. And that's one of the things that they did with Nolan's, and a lot of people didn't recognize it is that a lot of the fight scenes in Nolan's Batman in the Batman Begins movie are all pulled back, shot very what they called Hong Kong cinema style.
Yes.
Where it's a long shot, you see the actors come in, he's fighting, he's doing his thing. There's a couple of quick cuts on some things, but for the most part, you get a sense. There's that long shot where you get a sense of, okay, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. Now you can throw in a couple of quick cuts, but we still understand the scene. And
right.
with the way they did it in Batman and Superman, it's just everything's close-ups and eyeballs, and it's just a big mess. You can't tell what the hell's going on.
No, you can't. And then you throw that in with just a questionable story. I mean, the editing on it was atrocious. It felt like a clip show.
Yeah.
And now on a very special Different Strokes. It was like, okay, we're just kind of jumping. How does it tie together?
It's like this. Okay, so here's an example. When you were a kid and you played with your action figures, and I assume that you had action figures, you would put them down, you'd set them up, you'd have an idea like, okay, I'm going to turn this bed into a planet, and they're going to be here, and this is going to happen, and I'm going to play. It's almost like this. This is the difference between Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins and Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman. You go, you get your toys set up, you go to the bathroom, and you come back, your toys are still there, and you're playing with them. Mm-hmm. That's Batman Begins. Batman v Superman. You set your toys up, you go to the bathroom, you come in, your room's not there anymore, the whole house has exploded, and you have no idea where your toys are. That's the difference. I mean, it's like literally just completely out of the realm of what it's supposed to be. You have no concept of what's happening.
I would go with that because one of the longest poems I ever wrote was about that, about how I was as a kid, that I would direct these epic
me too.
saga. It's like, so wait, G.I. Joe and the Hulk are fighting the Penguin. It just worked. And I use the entire house, so it's going from garage to living room to kitchen. You forget. It's like, where did I leave that? Because it's through the whole house. Mm-hmm. But then you would move through the story, and have the interactions and even dialogue.
Yeah, we were nerds.
That you would do.
I did the same thing.
Totally.
I mean, I would have literally like Princess Leia's over here with Luke Skywalker, and they're having a discussion. Meanwhile, Darth Vader's over in the other room they're making their evil plans to take over the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
And you'd go back and forth between rooms to do these scenes.
And you know what drove me nuts?
We should be filmmakers.
Okay. We should. What drove me nuts as a kid, because I would work all this out, and then it's like, so-and-so fights this guy, and this is how he does it. And I would actually have him like throw punches and do all this. I don't know if you had this friend.
Oh, but I know which friend you're talking about.
But he would grab like the Riddler and Batman, and he'd bang the two dolls together and go, they're fighting!
Yep.
And they'd be like, Batman won.
Yep.
Be like, what the hell was that? First of all, you're breaking my stuff.
And the Riddler's arms like in the other room now.
Yeah, it's like, come on, jackass. My parents had to pay for that.
Exactly, yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what Batman Superman was like. Yeah, we're just going to bang them together,
exactly,
and then we'll see what happens. It's like, we can't even choreograph that. How much money you spend on this?
Oh, yeah. I would totally have slow motion punches and stuff and reactions and all this the crazy shit.
Yes, and then afterwards they got together and talked about it.
Yep.
This would probably be a good time to say spoilers.
Okay.
In case, I guess, somebody hasn't seen Batman v Superman.
And if you haven't, don't.
Yeah, I mean, just wait till it's on HBO or Showtime. Don't even wait for the pay-per-view. But the biggest fault with this whole movie, first of all, the way they get them together is convoluted.
Yeah.
It's done so much better in the comic books. And you have a light character, the hopeful character, the dark, pessimistic character, automatic contrast between the two. Now you've got two dark, gloomy characters, and so now you've got to come up with this artificial conflict done by the guy from The Social Network to get them to fight. And you're sitting there beating the guy's brains out. Moments from stabbing him. Your foot is on his throat. Minutes from stabbing him. Or moments.
Yeah.
Take care of my mother, Martha. Why'd you say... If Superman's mom's name would have been Janet, Batman would have killed him.
Yep.
Wait, your mom's name is Martha? Oh, wait, no, I'll go save your mom. What's that? Your mom's name is Janet? Fuck you. Kills him.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what? That's what you're hinging this whole thing on? Wow. It's horrible.
It is.
That to me is, it's like, how did... I don't know. At that point, I just lost it. Now, granted, that led to the best scene in the movie, which is when he does rescue her. It was like, okay, I got a chuckle out of that.
I got a chuckle out of that moment when he's the whole
Yeah,
Martha.
yeah,
I looked at my
like-
daughter. I went and saw it with her, and I was just laughing uncontrollably. And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Come on, are you kidding me?"
The best line I thought was, I'm a friend of your son. It's
Yeah.
like, that's okay. That's funny.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I kind of got it with the cape. Cute moment. And they could have used more of that. And
Oh, yeah.
Marvel does that. They find that balance between we're telling a serious story, but that doesn't mean everybody has to be grim and serious all the time.
Yeah.
You can work in some of that levity. I mean, we're
And-
not watching Eastern Promises.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And what's weird is you think about the way Marvel started everything and the way DC started it. Marvel started with Iron Man,
Mm-hmm.
which is a secondary character. It's not really a big Marvel character, but it
which
was
is odd to say that now.
Well, yeah, but
Because
it
now
was,
you're like, wait, he was ever a secondary
Exactly.
character? No.
he was basically Marvel's Batman, basically, is what he was.
Yeah.
So that's what he was. But they picked the right character because he was a snarky little jackass, basically. It was like
Yeah.
rich entitled guy, too much money, happens to be brilliant, does all these things. So it was the right way to start. And the way that Marvel did it, where they actually had each character had its own couple movies. You now care about these characters. Now we're going to put them together and jam them into this one movie, and you actually are invested at this point. Versus what DC did, which they have no movies. They have one Superman movie.
Right.
They have a whole bunch of Batman movies, but those, forget about those.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have this new situation where they're just jammed in together, and now we're going to introduce all these other characters. And guess what? The next movie is going to be the big one.
Justice League.
Justice League.
Where Aquaman holds his breath.
Yeah. And has his hair done by Suave or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that was. I noticed that in that scene. I'm like, that looks really awkward.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
And yet you look at it. It almost feels like DC's chasing a little bit too, because it's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
wow, Marvel's
very
put out
much so.
all these movies, and DC's like, well, we got this one out, and it took us 47 years to. I mean, it's just it's taken them so long, and Marvel's kind of on this track record of like, hey, we have one guy kind of in charge of the universe, but we've got a different set of directors, writers for all these films, whereas DC's like, how much money do you want, Mr. Snyder?
Yeah.
It's like you can't. He's killing it, not in a good way.
We talked about news media in the last episode.
Yeah.
This one bugged me. So why, after Batman v Superman was crucified basically by the critics, did no one go to Christopher Nolan and say, "Hey, what'd you think of Batman v Superman?" That never came out. How is that not a news story? How is that not something that was?
You'd think that'd show up in the nerd press
Exactly.
at some point. He's still on there as executive producer.
Yeah.
I don't think he had anything to executive produce on. I think it was just we owe him money.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
But they're following his formula, the dark, gritty, realistic. It's like you could work. I mean, they've worked Captain America into, and some of these characters in where it's like, okay, and you've got Thor, who's a god. It's like, okay, still, to sit there and say it's going to be 100% believable, Nolan did a very good job of making the Batman films realistic, but you're still talking about a billionaire who dresses up and fights crime and doesn't get killed.
Yep.
So there's still got to be some suspension of belief.
Yeah, for sure.
But as long as you're doing that, it's like, okay, so you've got this character who's a super soldier and a guy who's a god and a guy who has a suit and a guy who turns green. But it's still kind of a serious, believable universe in what it is.
You know what I've noticed about these movies too is that, and I think this is just the way it is. I think the most you're going to get out of any individual character is 2 good movies. That's pretty much about what you're going to get. Once you get past 2, it starts to get convoluted story-wise. There's less story to tell because they tend to, just compress it.
Or you're
so
drunk.
much.
You're drunk on the success and think, hey, this one. How do we top it? Well, then we'll bring in Venom and Sandman.
Exactly.
And
So
then it's just
you had 2 good Spider-Man movies.
yep.
Sort of, kind of had 2 good Iron Man movies.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Two was not as good,
Yeah.
but I still enjoyed. Whereas 3 was just like, what?
Awful,
Just
yeah.
make this stop.
You had 2 good Captain America movies. The second one was extremely good.
Yes.
Now, what they're doing something smart on the third one, not really a Captain America movie, more of an Avengers movie, if you think about it.
Yeah, Avengers 2.5.
Exactly.
But one of the early, and I never do this, but I'm staying away from all reviews.
Okay. Yeah.
On this one, I really want to just go into this one and enjoy it. But one thing I had read was that it really, in spite of everything you see, Cap is really centric to the story. It's a Cap-centric story. And I thought, okay, that's cool, because it's more, not POV, but I guess, more the events surrounding his life.
Yeah.
But from everything I've seen, it looks great.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
I'm more excited seeing this trailer than when I saw the first Batman Superman show. I was like, oh man, he's gonna piss on my childhood again.
Same thing. Batman, the original Tim Burton, 1 and 2, good movies.
Yeah.
Third one,
well, third one you went to Joel Schumacher, and who obviously
and then fourth was awful.
I'm sure Schumacher was just upset that he couldn't get Adam West back, because that was just
that's what he wanted, I guess.
Yeah, it was. He went back to the camp,
and to some degree the Nolan. I think the second Nolan movie was superior to the first, and the third one was not as great.
No,
I would say that's. I'm not going to watch that one again.
No, I would no,
but I would watch Dark Knight again.
He tried to He tried to cram too much into 3. We're going to throw in Bane, Catwoman, Talia al Ghul, Robin. It's just, okay.
It starts to get muddled. Yeah,
it does. And Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
And so what have you seen the 2 new Spider-Man with? Who's the kid?
Yeah,
the kid from Social Network, Andrew Garfield, who I don't really like in anything.
I wasn't a fan of either of those movies, to tell you.
I thought they sucked.
Yeah, I agree. There was moments that I enjoyed, but for the most part, and the second one's really bad. I mean, the second one suffers greatly from the Zack Snyder-ish kind of everything's too close, you can't see crap kind of fight scenes and everything.
Yeah,
and too much CGI.
And the end of it was just the worst.
Yeah, it was.
It was like, wow, how much did you have to pay Paul Giamatti to do that?
Right.
It was, that was horrible. And it kind of lost the heart of the film. Peter Parker's always kind of been a smart aleck, but in this one he was just snarky. And it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a jerk.
I'm looking forward to Spider-Man being in the Marvel fold now. So
I am too. There was some article I read today that Marvel was basically saying, yes, we have full creative control over the Sony the Sony pictures now, which is smart for both, because it helps Marvel's brand, and then Sony can sit there and say, hey, we're not going to get crucified for putting out a turd of a movie, and we'll make money.
Yeah.
So, that's smart on their behalf.
Yeah. Same thing with the X-Men movies. X-Men 1, X-Men 2. 2 was great. 3, what the
Well, that was a Brett Ratner.
Yeah.
Well, because what's his name that I can't think
Bryan
of?
Singer?
Yeah, Singer went off and decided to ruin the Superman franchise, or try to start one up. And as we've talked about on another podcast, he's like, I'm going to make Superman the Superman 3 that should have happened, but I'm not going to tell anybody.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, what? This is horrible casting. Just so much stuff with that movie. I think it had a lot of heart, but it was just the retelling of Superman was all about land. Mm-hmm. So then they got Brett Ratner. So basically, Bryan Singer ruined two movies.
Yeah, he did. He
did.
Yeah.
Because X-Men 3 was just the.
Have you liked the First Class stuff at all?
The second one. The first one I really didn't.
Yeah.
It played too much with the timeline for my liking. Because I kind of was like, okay, Xavier's the adult. He brought them in as kids, and now it's like, wait, they're contemporaries. But the second one I thought was better.
Yeah, I liked it.
And I haven't watched a lot about X-Men Apocalypse. My exposure to X-Men really was that '90s cartoon.
Yeah.
More so because it was a shortened timeline. It was like it's telling the stories, but I can follow it because I know who the characters are. Whereas in the 90s, when I really started reading comic books, it's like, okay, I've got 18 X-Men titles to choose from. They're all in the middle of a storyline. I remember, a reprint of issue 1 and had that basic knowledge. Who are these people?
Yeah.
There was just no good jumping on point. So the cartoon really provided that for me. To see, okay, here's who they are. And I thought that's what they did well with the first movie. Mm-hmm. It was like, here's a good point for you guys to know who's who.
Yeah. I was a big X-Men fan growing up. I read all the comics, or a lot of the comics, even into the New Mutants and everything else. And the first movie, while I enjoyed it, it bugged me because they didn't include some of the the original X-Men that you would expect to see in this particular movie. You know, the fact that you didn't have, Colossus, you didn't have a lot of other people in there that you should have had. It just kind of
Nightcrawler.
Yeah, Nightcrawler didn't come until the second one. It was just kind of a letdown. But I still enjoyed the movies. But again, you're getting into what they're doing versus it has to have some sort of fan service, but also tell a story that other people can go in not knowing anything and enjoy it. So I think what they did was they looked at the core character and said, okay, everybody loves Wolverine. Let's do this Wolverine-centric and kind of build it around
and
that.
then they did a Wolverine movie.
Yep.
And that sucked.
Horrible. The second one was okay. I like the second one.
Second one wasn't bad. I remember thinking, okay, the X-Men movies have done well. Hugh Jackman, a movie star. Could you spend more than $10 on the special effects? Because what's with the Roger Rabbit clause?
Yeah,
it was just it was horrible.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. That's the same thing with the Bond series. If you think about series that made a crap ton of money, but they just progressively got cheaper and cheaper and worse and worse.
Yes.
You look at that last Pierce Brosnan movie, and the special effects are so bad.
Well, and again, you're dealing with a universe where it's like, okay, there's some suspension of reality, but it's like, wait, he's windsurfing through a storm. Like, okay, I'm out. It's just now you've just pushed me.
You knew what I was. That was in my brain when I said that.
And as you look at it, there's nothing about it that goes, that's completely fake. That they're not even trying to make it look real.
I know.
So now as I look at it, I know it's fake.
Yep.
Which just draws me a point of this is even more stupid.
Yeah.
Whereas when you can kind of do it with a decent effect, you're like, all right, I might buy it. But that, like, no. Skiing off a cliff and jumping, and then you've got the Union Jack parachute, which, well, they actually did. That was an actual stunt.
Yeah.
But you're like, yeah, that's cool. Bond's escaping.
Yep.
And this was like, oh, yeah, whatever.
But that killed me because I really liked the first 30 minutes of that movie when Bond's being tortured and delivered back, and I was like, this is cool. It's gonna be great, nice gritty Bond movie with great, and then it just went right in the toilet after that. I'm like, wow,
We had enough for a short story, but we
yeah.
We pushed it to a novel.
That's going to be another episode. Love to Hate Bond.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
We got a lot to talk about there.
So probably a good time to be a nerd.
Yeah, definitely a very good time.
I know the fans of Deadpool were richly rewarded. I
still haven't seen it.
Well,
did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. And what did you think?
But I didn't pay for it.
Well, no, but
I get that. So my Ryan Reynolds thing is still safe.
Okay.
No money spent on Ryan Reynolds movies. Really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know much about the character. I know just the basics about the character, but I enjoyed it because they told a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gets you involved in it. Like, oh, you kind of care about this guy, or you understand a little bit of his backstory, as opposed to just like, boop, we're throwing him in. Like, wait, hold on. I don't know what's going on. Why should I care what's happening? And there was enough humor in it, but it was still a very dark movie, filthy movie.
Yeah.
But it worked. And the box office showed that.
Yeah.
What's funny is all the numbers you keep seeing for Batman v Superman. Like, it's now at $850 million. $300 million has been, domestic. It's like, okay, so that sucks.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the foreign box office, this movie wouldn't have made anything.
Yeah. And the bad part about the foreign box office is they don't get anything from that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
They get 50% of the box office from the cinemas here, so they've made $150 million on that movie. That's a gigantic, colossal failure for them. So,
well, if you make a good product, people will flock to it.
Yeah, exactly.
What about
and that's the thing; they'll flock to it again and again and again.
Yes,
and that's really kind of what you rely on with this type of genre work, because there's a group of people that'll go see it the first time because it's a big action movie. My friends want to see it. I got this nerd guy that's telling me about it. Okay, I'll go see it. So you get a group of people that go that aren't necessarily the hardcore fans. The hardcore fans are going to go see it again and again and again if it's a good movie. If it's not, guess what? You're relying on that first weekend.
You had very few people probably, see Superman, Batman 9 times.
No, yeah. And the ones that do, God bless them, because they have no idea what a good movie is.
Zack Snyder thanks you.
Yeah.
Do his movies hold up?
I don't know, man.
I mean, I want to go back and watch 300 just to see how it stands the test of time.
But I watched that semi recently, and it's still an entertaining movie. Stylistically, it's a little lacking now. I think it hasn't aged very well. There's certain things that just really look off in it. But I think Dawn of the Dead still holds up. That's probably his best movie, really, as a good, solid remake that does it well with good characters that you care about. And that's what Dawn of the Dead was. I mean, Dawn of the Dead, if you ever see the original, was all about the characters. There just happens to be zombies in it.
Yeah.
And he did
like
that
Walking
with the
Dead.
remake. Yeah, exactly. He did that with the remake. You cared about that situation. Have you seen the remake?
No.
Okay, so there's a part in the remake where there's a guy that he's on. They're in the mall and they're doing their thing, and they happen to look over with binoculars and they see this other guy like far off in the distance who's got a sign up. It's like, hey, need food. You guys got anything? And they build a relation. There's two characters in the movie that build a relationship. They play chess games over the binoculars and stuff like that. Little stuff like that makes you care about these characters in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And they don't do that often anymore. So that movie is very, very good movie for Zack Snyder. Probably his best. After that, it just kind of went right after 300. It just went to shit.
Well,
much.
He did Watchmen, which it was very faithful, but it's like I just really didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't really get involved in the characters. They were just
one dimensional.
There, yeah. Very. But I'd probably get crucified if I said this in a comic book store. I thought the characters were written very flat in the comic book, or the graphic novel. They didn't resonate with me. It was a story, but at no point did I really care about those characters in the book.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's what burns me up so much about Batman and Superman is these are characters I grew up with that I cared about.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay,
And I think DC's taken the wrong approach because they're assuming that just because you know who these characters are,
that you care.
Yeah.
No.
And they're not giving us a story that makes us care about them.
Right.
This is really, honestly, these last two Superman movies are probably the worst. I would say even more so than the third one with Richard Pryor and Quest for Peace, which is saying a lot.
There were there are parts of Man of Steel where I thought they kind of nailed some of it. And it's like, why didn't you do more of that?
Yeah.
Instead of, the whole disaster porn at the end, show me him in a bar getting picked on and knowing I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Show me him on a boat and he goes and saves people and nobody knows what happens.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's just doing things because he can. And, the same, one of the lines I love when he's beating Zod goes, "You think you can threaten my mother?" It's like, oh my God, this isn't a superhero thing. This is a son defending his mom.
Yeah.
That's what made it great. And basically, to me, you have this kid who's raised in Kansas, whose parents basically, in spite of what they say in the films, his parents are basically like, you know what? You can do these things. You need to help people. Mm-hmm. You've been given much, so it's the Stan Lee thing.
Yeah,
great power, great responsibility. You can do these things, and he says, okay, I'll do these things. I can help people. I want to help people because it's the right thing to do. What a mensch!
Yeah,
what a nice guy. And now you've just got this, I don't know, if I try to help people, I'm going to just get yelled at, so why the hell should I bother?
Right.
Why is everybody picking on me? Like, oh, man.
Yeah. I as long as that movie is to have so little character development, I don't know how they did it. I really don't know. I'd have to almost watch it shot for shot to see.
You're talking about Man of Steel or Batman Superman?
Batman Superman.
Well, good news is they're adding another 30 minutes.
God.
To the R-rated version,
yeah. And introducing more characters that we're not going to care about.
Because we know what the director's cut did for Daredevil.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, Man of Steel, like you said, it had its moments. I liked probably the first half of that movie more than I liked the second half.
It was better before we put on the costume.
Yeah, I liked the stuff with his father and everything. But that, after that, it got out of hand.
Because it had heart.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. What heart does for a movie. Rocky.
Yeah.
Okay, the first one, fantastic film. The last one, Creed, fantastic film. I even thought Rocky Balboa was good. Mm-hmm. 2, all right. 3, now we're stretching it. 4 was ridiculous. 5, stupid.
Yeah.
But I'm still sitting there wanting Rocky to beat this kid because it's like, I love this guy.
Yep.
He's just this big oaf with this heart who's just doing all he knows how to do, and I care. If you just made Rocky 5 and just dropped me in, here's a story about a boxer, I'd be like, what do I care?
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I've seen his progression.
And we go back to what Marvel's doing with their films.
Yes.
So you have, the reason you care about Rocky and Creed is because you know the character from Rocky 1, Rocky 2. Okay, Rocky 3 is more just, glitzy popcorn movie, and Rocky
Sure.
4 is the same. He came back to it with Rocky Balboa, more heart, and then Creed. So because you have that whole thing to hold on to, it means something to you, and
Yes.
and we don't have that with these new movies because they're assuming that we have that already because we know the character.
Think of this when in the 78 version of Superman. He watched his dad die.
Yep.
What kind of impact does that have on a kid? That, wow, I just saw my dad die, and hey, I couldn't do anything to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, man, that hurts. And so now you care about this guy because here's a guy who's lost an entire planet and now just lost the man he's closest to.
Uh-huh.
You end up caring.
And then when Lois Lane dies,
Yeah, well, then okay. That biggest problem with that movie.
yeah,
They should have had him swoop in at the last minute.
Yeah,
That was, but then again, that's where you've probably got some suit going. It really work here.
yeah,
Or you got it was written by Mario Puzo.
yeah.
Trust him with writing a Don, but
It's like that's what I remember seeing that as a kid and go, why didn't he save his dad if he could save Lois Lane?
Yeah.
He could go back a whole bunch more.
because he didn't. Yeah, gonna have to go all the way
They
back.
go back for a long time.
Yeah, and it was the thing I didn't like was that movie gave us the Crystal Fortress of Solitude forever.
Yeah,
And I, growing up, it was never that. It was always the big thing in the ice with the key, but it wasn't just these crystals. It was like, where does he sit?
yeah, right.
This place looks incredibly uncomfortable.
There's a little interior decorator going on there or something.
Yeah,
He's a woman's touch.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I guess going forward, I'm kind of hopeful for comic book movies. Marvel's got a full slate of them,
Yeah.
as does DC. But
How
I have no
many
figure.
more are you giving DC?
that I'll go see in the theater.
Yeah.
None.
None? You're done?
No, yeah. There's no point in seeing Justice League. I mean, unless they send out a trailer and it just looks fantastic. But if they're going to go this whole CGI action route, then I'll just wait till it's on TV.
What about Suicide Squad?
Not so much.
Not so much?
No, I don't like the way they do it. I like the Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated.
Yeah.
But I think I read the first 2 issues of Suicide Squad back when Ostrander wrote it, and much different.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is based on the New 52 or whatever they're in. They're changing the New 52 again.
Yeah.
So I'm not really familiar with this iteration of Suicide Squad. Although I think it's basically DC's version of the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah. I'm kind of wanting to give that a chance, but at the same time, I'm like,
It's still that dark, gritty universe.
I know.
There was a rumor they went back and did reshoots
Yeah.
to add some levity because of all the criticism they've taken. And my criticism with Batman Superman is not necessarily from the nerd point of view, although I think they totally missed Superman in that boat, but it's more so from the movie point of view. It wasn't a good film.
No, it wasn't.
Regardless of how you feel about those characters. It was choppy, poorly edited. The soundtrack was obnoxious, and there was too much CGI to tell what was going on. Was obviously, it took me out of the film.
Yeah. I agree.
Whereas, like you said, Abrams bringing Star Wars back. I hated the prequels. Now it's like, okay, this looks like a real universe.
Mhm. Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, gotta love them, gotta hate them. There's some definite love out there, and there's some definite that we just would do without. So,
And I do. I love these characters, but don't make me hate on you
exactly.
for whatever that means.
All right, so check us out at iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and we're also going to be on YouTube. It's not going to be video; it's just going to be audio on YouTube. But
Thank God,
And
'cause
if you have an idea for a show,
I would have
we
worn
wanna
better
do-
pants.
right? I would have put my wig on. If you have something you want us to talk about, go to the Twitter sphere and get us at love2 hate POD, love to hate pod, or go to Gmail at love to hate podcast.
Send in your recommendations, and we will seriously consider them.
And if they're crappy, we're gonna
We're gonna let you know about it. So that's it. All the gloves are off on this podcast. Forget it.
exactly. See
Yeah.
you next time, kids.
Take care, kids.